A big move is incoming for the Toronto Maple Leafs as a brand new report by Elliotte Friedman has revealed some very interesting details about Brad Treliving's plans over the coming weeks, as he has revealed that the Leafs are targeting a left winger, and another report has come out revealing who that left winger could be. So I'm going to break that down in this episode, as well as discuss what it could mean for the current Leafs roster going forward, specifically Nick Robertson. So stay tuned for all that on this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to Darius and myself if you could do that. About 70% of you aren't subscribed. But Darius, there's a lot to go over today, and Elliotte Friedman, I feel like he's been kind of looming in the shadows now for a little bit. Hasn't been much Leafs news from Elliotte Friedman or new report about what's going on. We've obviously heard it from a lot of different reliable reporters, but Elliotte Friedman came out and he said something very interesting, and there's a lot of different ways we can take this kind of going forward. We see this here. So the Maple Leafs are still considering and are actively looking for left wing options, and Max Pacioretty, sorry, you saw it in the intro video. Max Pacioretty is the guy that a lot of Leafs fans had circled before this report came out just yesterday. And Darius, I just want to get your thoughts on it. We're going to break down what it means for the Leafs, obviously, but Max Pacioretty, he seems to be a guy that is really picking up in Leafs land, and especially after this Elliotte Friedman report. Obviously, this report has a lot of different implications. We'll probably cover it in a future video as well regarding some more stuff on the Nick Robertson front. But Max Pacioretty here, something interesting is brewing for the Leafs, I think.
Something is brewing, and it looks like obviously they're looking at left-wing options, so that could affect Nick Robertson. We'll get to that later in the video and what that maybe looks like, right? But I was pretty surprised. We did a stream last night, and a lot of people were calling for Max Pacioretty because we were kind of going through different options, maybe JVR, a couple different players. Obviously, we had a video on Kevin LeBanc, and I was surprised at how many people were saying or calling for Max Pacioretty, especially Leaf fans, because obviously he's a former Hab captain, right? Not just a Montreal Canadian. He used to be their captain, so obviously a little bit of a rivalry there, but yeah, he could be a very interesting option, but I am a little skeptical because there is some injury history there the last couple of years. Didn't really play much last year either. We can get into his stats a little bit too as we go along here, but he could be an interesting option, but he's not going to play every game. I just don't see him playing every game. And is he going to be an expensive option? I don't think so. But again, that's eating up a lot of salary cap that you could probably give to somebody else like Kevin LeBanc if he were to make the team, after a PTO or something like that. So it could be an interesting option even as a PTO, but I don't know how much he's going to help the team. Obviously, he's got that leadership. He's a little bit older. He has playoff experience, but I don't know how much he can help the team, on either side of the ice, especially if there is some injury trouble.
Yeah, he's aging a little bit, and of this report, there's Friedman didn't dive into how what tier they're going for. They could be going for a really high-end left winger, or they could be going for a lower-end left winger, or somewhere in the middle, like a Max Pacioretty type player. And we know a report came out from Frank Saravalli about a week ago saying that, you can see at the bottom, Max Pacioretty has firm offers in hand from at least 3 teams. The veteran forward is expected to make a decision soon. So that, paired with the Elliotte Friedman report of them looking at left-wing options, means, hey, maybe Max Pacioretty, if you put 2 and 2 together, could be coming to Toronto. And you can also see the exact quote was, I think there are some things percolating out there, including Toronto considering left-wing options. So obviously when he says things are percolating, it means the Leafs, Friedman uses his words very wisely. Every time that this has happened for teams around the NHL where he says, hey, this team is targeting a certain position, it seems like a move happens like 70 to 80% of the time. And that's why this is so interesting, specifically regarding, obviously, Elliotte Friedman making the quote, but Max Pacioretty as well. You mentioned it, 23 points, 47 games. He's almost 36 years old, so I don't know how much he could bring, especially when there's other guys that are available, but I'm just excited that the Leafs are pursuing a left wing option. And any final thoughts on Pacioretty before we dive into what this could mean, or some other targets as well for the Leafs?
Yeah, it's an interesting option, but the fact that, there's 3 other teams involved too, or I guess 2 other teams if there's 3 total, if it's the Leafs, that might raise the price a little bit because we don't know what teams are looking at him, and maybe they can afford him on a more wealthy contract. So we don't know what that looks like exactly. But I think he could be an interesting option for the Leafs. I don't think he's a difference maker on left wing for them. I feel like if they're going out to get a left wing, it should be somebody else. But again, we don't know what's going to happen with Nick Robertson, so maybe they're just trying to fill somebody in there. But I wonder if somebody, from the Marlies can do a more effective job because they're younger and maybe can be more physical just because of Pacioretty's injury history over the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm a little skeptical about that. I don't think, I'm not saying that he can't help the team in terms of leadership capability or even in the playoffs, right? Where, you're not playing all 82 games or something like that. But yeah, I think it's just it's an interesting fit. I could see it working, but if there's other teams involved, maybe you pass on this one specifically.
Yeah, you obviously would be getting him for the veteran presence. He's been around for a while. He's won at, he's a winning player. He helps teams that need veteran presence to win, especially in the playoffs, and to be bringing in, and that's being shown here by the fact that he has offers from 2 other teams, if you're including the Leafs here. And again, Sarah Valley didn't say directly that it's the Leafs, but I feel like the Leafs might have an offer at this point for them, especially after this report here. So let us know what your thoughts are on Max Pacioretty. I found this tweet very interesting. This will either be Max Pacioretty or Matt Martin, absolutely zero in between. We had a video on Matt Martin, Cal Clutterbuck, that kind of duo. We have PTO player or Max Pacioretty who's going to get an NHL contract. So again, lends credit to the fact that Friedman didn't specify whether it's a high-end player or a low-end player. We'll probably get some clarity on that in this week. Obviously, it's Monday now, so a lot of news is going to be coming out throughout the week, hopefully about what kind of player they are pursuing. But very interesting, the Max Pacioretty front, and let us know what your thoughts are on the Pacioretty thing. But there's what this can mean going forward for the Leafs, and we'll have a full video probably covering it regarding Nick Robertson. But when the fact that they're looking for left-wing options, we've spoken about their lack of depth at the forward position. This could be very interesting for Nick Robertson going forward. Made a video on it yesterday and had a stream on it about the offer sheet, what's going to happen with him. But I think that this might imply that if Robertson trade, or not even just Robertson, some sort of shakeup is going to happen to the forward group. Now, whether that's Nick Robertson, whether that's some of the guys that we think are penciled in for the opening lineup in September or in October against the Montreal Canadiens for the opening night game, something is going to be changed with that forward group. And whether that is in the form of a trade or a signing is unsure, but this is a sign from Elliotte Friedman that moves are coming, and Brad Treliving said it himself a while ago, but I think they'll be a bit bigger than we initially thought. That's my gut feeling, at least.
Yeah, just a couple weeks ago, Brad Treliving made that comment that we're not done yet. And when you look at the roster on paper, we were talking about in a video just a couple of days ago, it doesn't look complete. It looks weak, and there was comments about it in our live stream yesterday about it as well, that it looks kind of weak, like it needs something. So I think they're trying to get some healthy competition going, of course, with some of the younger guys, but they're probably going to need another guy on left wing too. And in saying that, like, obviously when, say what you want about Friedman, but when he talks or he puts something out there, when there's smoke, there's fire with him. I find like something is going to happen in probably very short order. So I do think this could be Nick Robertson, because as the days and the weeks go by and we're getting closer to training camp, I think the Leafs as an organization want to avoid another situation. I'm not saying Nick Robertson is as good as William Nylander, but you want to avoid that situation, even like the one with Mitch Marner a couple of years ago, where you're coming into training camp without a contract and there's so many questions. I feel like the organization themselves want to avoid that distraction on media day, when training camp starts, and of course preseason. So they're going to have to make a decision here quickly. And by all accounts, we went through it, yesterday too. Nick Robertson doesn't sound like he wants to sign here. It looks like he wants another opportunity somewhere else. And on his side of things too, it would be wise to sign and just play. So maybe they're working together to get something done where he goes somewhere else and the Leafs get something in return that they can use to better fit the lineup, I guess. Because like we talked about too, I think that the Leafs need less guys that kind of rotate around the lineup and them trying to find something to work, and they need something more, with an identity. Every line kind of needs an identity. They need to move towards that. So I don't know. It seems like, I just get a feeling, I don't know, Nick, I think, we can agree that something is going to happen either this week or next week, because training camp's coming and there's a lot of question marks still.
Yeah, and it could involve a shakeup to just players that we didn't think would be getting moved. It might not even be left wingers. It could be a bunch of different guys that you mentioned, it, not the fringe NHLers or anything like that, but players that don't have as defined roles. And we know that guys like David Kampf are getting paid a ton. Maybe they try to move off of his contract to move things elsewhere, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But a very interesting report from Elliotte Friedman that might be a sign of what's coming next for the Leafs, whether it's this week, next week. We're getting closer to training camp, so a move will probably happen very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow.